Hello everybody and welcome to another sketchbook tour. I'm actually amazed. I started off my series of sketchbook tours and I'm going to put them into a playlist so that they're a bit organised for you because there are a few now. When I started at the beginning of the year and I decided to develop my YouTube channel a little bit more, I was struggling to fill one because I had so many on the go. But I made a bit of a New Year's resolution, kinda, sorta, that I wasn't going to keep doing that. I was going to finish sketchbooks. The thing is they all have different papers, they have different formats, and they have different uses. So in a way, I'm still doing it, but I'm being a little bit more grown up about filling them. This one is my Clairefontaine Goldline and square format. Love it. I think it's about 20 centimetres. Give or take, and it's my favourite, and probably that's why I've filled it so quickly. So hello and welcome. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. It's lovely to see you. If you're one of my regulars, dare I say now, it's lovely to see you again. I hope you enjoy this little look through my favourite sketchbook, and if you like what you see, do consider joining my Patreon where I show you how to achieve it. It's all mixed media, which is what I do, and there's a real mixed bag in here. Bit of everything, including sketches and some collages and things like that. So let's get started. Like I said, I love the square format and I love this paper. It's not like that one there. In fact, I've left one at the back here. I think it's a waste of time, to be fair. You can't quite see, but it is a slightly textured one. You may actually know the Clairefontaine Goldline series. Really worth the spend, in my opinion. They didn't give me this sketchbook. I bought it, but I'm happy about it. So yeah, I do think it's worthwhile. And I have another one laid down like a good bottle of wine ready. Now that I'm finished this one, I start a new one, so that's also nice. So like I said, I'm a mixed media artist, and that means I use absolutely everything I can get my hands on. So this one is a start out. This was the first one, the first time I'd used this sketchbook, and it was very, very new, and I thought, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to like it. I sort of hope so, since I have a whole sketchbook, but it's gouache in the background, coloured pencil over the top, fine liners and acrylic markers, which is something I use a lot. So I was happy with the way it went, so I kept going. This one is my special mix of greens and a little bit of pastel dust, I see. My special mix of greens for Ecoline liquid watercolours, which are sadly not considered to be very light fast, so they belong in my sketchbook where I love to use them. And I really love overhanging branches and foreground details to frame my pictures, even if they don't go all the way along. It's not very balanced, this one. I think it would probably be more artistically correct to have a little bit more over this side and sort of balance them this way, but it is what it is. I like it and it's all right. That's the good thing about sketchbooks. No one has to see it. But yeah, again, gouache background, liquid watercolour here and here, then some Neocolor 1s and 2s. The Neocolor 1 is the non-water soluble one, which is fabulous for resist techniques. And this was a landscape art club challenge, I think, somewhere very north in America. This one was just out of my head. I wanted to just experiment with greens, and I wanted an old building with some bricks and so forth. So yeah, it's a little bit of my resist technique is, when I talk about that, that's one I've developed myself. As far as I know, no one else uses it. And it's really, really easy to use with coloured pencil and Neocolor 2 or 1, but 2 has got better colours, to be fair. Another imaginary one. It's kind of like the Bay Area in Australia near where I grew up, and it's then a bit of a British one as well, and again foreground interest. Love very, very fine acrylic markers too. You can't go wrong with them, actually. They're a fabulous addition to the kit. Back in England, where we lived for 9 years, I'm sorry about the barking in the background. The dog has decided that there is imminent threat. Yeah, again, lots and lots of gouache. a fair bit of liquid watercolor. Love the way what I do something, I won't go into it here, but again, you can see it all if you want to on my Patreon. I treat it in a particular way that it is as dark as I can possibly manage it, to get these really deep, moody greens, which go perfectly with coloured pencils. And my coloured pencils, I've got Derwent Drawing, I've got lots actually, but Derwent Drawing, Caran d'Ache Luminance, and Derwent Light Fast are the ones that I reach for again and again and again, and that's what's quite a lot in here. And then there's some acrylic markers and neo colours, anything bright, and then this sort of thing here. This sort of tree is usually neo colour when you see it in my work. This is either liquid watercolour or gouache, or a mixture of the two. That famous resist technique and some water. This was another landscape art club challenge, which I loved. France this time, I believe. And another one in that photo series. Sometimes I see about 4 photos, that they usually do about 4, and I think, oh my goodness, I need to do all of these. Others think, not so sure. Sometimes I just don't have time, but when I do, I'm right in there. Norway, and a little bit of regular acrylic here to create the spray on the quite fast moving river, to be fair. I'm not sure if I would feel 100% happy living that close to a river that moved that quickly. And lots of gouache, bit of pastel up here, to a bit of pan pastel, that sort of thing. Again, liquid watercolour, coloured pencils. Love the combination. This one is, I think that one's gouache actually, somewhere in Scotland. And coloured pencil. I love these overhanging branches with liquid watercolours. Not sure whether this doesn't look particularly finished. Perhaps it was. Maybe it's shade, I think. That's what I was after. That will be shade. And again, the colours, I really have settled on a favourite colour palette that I use regularly. So I will actually do a video on that at some point so that you can see, because all of my pictures, this was somewhere in Cambridge, all of my pictures have about the same sort of tones of greens and so forth. I live in Germany. North Germany is particularly beautiful, very, very lush and green. This is a late summer one with one of our traditional thatched houses and so forth, half timbering bricks, very, very standard for this sort of area. And this is a city quite near to us, which is Hamburg. I don't know if you know it or not, but yeah, it's a beautiful place and lots of nice buildings, not particularly old. The damage during the Second World War was pretty much total in a lot of places. So the buildings aren't quite as old as we'd like to have them, although there is the odd one that has survived. And so, you know, we celebrate those. And this was a Patreon tutorial of a rape field where I was showing a few different techniques actually, including again, it's gouache and coloured pencil, acrylic markers, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that was a nice one actually. And this one's back in the north of England. It's imaginary, but it has a north of England vibe. And I've used some oil pastels here as well. That was something a bit different for me. I thought, well, why not, since I'm using everything else? They do require fixing, and it's quite simple though, and they work well in a sketchbook. This sort of, this is a resist technique to make stone walls, which is quite nice. Very quick, and not many, well, one tool needed and not many other things. So yeah, it's pretty accessible as well. Where are we going here? Another landscape art club challenge. This was so nice to do. It looks like a lot of work, and it kind of was, but it was very zen at the same time. Getting the sky so dramatic without looking absolutely kitsch. I'm not sure if I've even achieved that. I'm sure, let me know in the comments. But yeah, it was, I tend to avoid sunrises and sunsets because I don't know, I think it takes enormous skill to get them to not look really, really fake. And I'm not 100% convinced that I have the skills. So we said it's nice to have a go from time to time. England, imaginary. It's a bit of a Franken sketch. But yeah, sometimes when I don't know what to sketch, I'll just make marks usually they grow into something, and sometimes I can sort of, you know, just make blobs on the paper, and then I can say, well, actually I can see a hill there, so I'll turn that into a hill, or that can be another hill, and why don't we plonk a house in the middle and some foreground interest, that sort of thing. Love doing sheep, and this one looks like Cornwall actually, with those cliffs. I would suggest it is. Like these skies are really satisfying too. All gouache and nothing else actually, and I tend to use a brush that I'm not too fussy about whether it's kept nice tipped or not. You know, I'll just grab a couple here to show you. These are by an American company called DecoArt, and they're DecoArt Traditions, a dome blender and a blender mop. And the good thing about these is I don't, can I find, yes, here's a nice handy one. This one, for example, is supposed to be kept at a lovely tip, and you want to keep the tip pristine. It's dry at the moment, so it's a bit fluffy. I never put the plastic things back on them, because you always run the risk of taking one of the hairs and bending it down. Not many people use them. Actually, I don't. They're all right for transport. They're fabulous for transport. So when the brush is transported, it has got size on it to keep it nice and sharp. They put the tips on and you're good to go. But I don't put them back again. And I don't know anybody who does, actually. Probably some. Let me know if you like to do that or not, because I prefer not, because the risk to the brush is huge. So with these, you don't have to worry about the tips, and you can actually scrub the paint on in all sorts of directions, which allows for these brush marks, and that's how I get these skies. I don't have to worry about the brush. So yeah, really good effects. And I'm always happy with them. You know, there are one or two that I feel could be done better, but you know how it is. We're human, it's what happens. But by and large, the skies work for what I want. And my style, as you can see, it's quite moody with the colours and the skies and everything. This one's Norfolk. This is where we lived for 9 years in England. And it's full of waterways and places where you can just travel across the whole county, probably more reliable than the roads, to be fair. And I loved going. We had one day out with a walking group that we were involved with, and we had a boat trip across the fens, which is what the waterways are called. And it was just so nice. And somehow the birds, they don't sort of see you as the same sort of threat as when you're on foot or, you know, on a bicycle or something like that. So, you know, drifting through parts and seeing things that you wouldn't see if you were moving across the country with some other conveyance, you know, like I said, like feet or bicycle. So highly recommend, if you ever get a chance to go anywhere on an extensive waterway by boat, take it. It's brilliant. Germany. This is the Germany that I know and love. Green. This is what it looks like at the moment as well. Lush green and everything like that. Lots of mixed media here as usual. I almost always start with gouache. I'll start one of three ways. It'll either be gouache or liquid watercolour, or probably sometimes watercolour pencils, but that's watercolour markers, but that's rarer. It's usually gouache or liquid watercolour, and then build on top of those. And the thing I love about gouache is it provides an extra tooth to the paper. Even though the paper has tooth already and will take the layers, the gouache helps by providing a bit extra, because it is slightly rough when it's dry, which is so good for mixed media techniques. And yeah, these are acrylic markers, and the grass is acrylic markers. That took forever. There's no point pretending it didn't. However, it's worth it. And this is what we do as artists. The sort of people who become artists don't worry about how long something takes, because you're enjoying the process as well. If, you know, the people who don't like the process and say, oh, that took 3 hours, I couldn't be bothered, they're probably more likely to go buy it anyway, because, and that's the thing, artists need those people. So we can't judge and say, oh, you know, if you're not a proper artist or not doing this or not doing that, that's just, it's ridiculous. It's like a theatre group. A theatre group needs an audience. Not everybody can be on the stage. It would be chaos. You need people in the audience to purchase what you've produced. So we have people who don't mind the process, and then we have people who say, I can't do that. I don't want to. It takes too long. However, I'll buy it. I'll support the artist, or they buy other things. You know, some people buy, some people make. So never be put off by a long process. Take it, chunk it down into small bits and do a little bit of it. I love listening to my audiobooks when I'm doing that, and the time just flies. My husband assures me that what I told him was 10 minutes in my art room is actually 4 hours. I don't believe him, but apparently he's right. Another one of Germany. And again, this is the Germany that I know is so just lush and beautiful. Not the city. The city is different. They're beautiful as well. And we've got some heartbreakingly pretty towns. You wouldn't believe it. It looks like Disney World, but it's not. They're places that have been lived in. And there's one castle here, Burg Eltz, which is a beautiful castle in fabulous setting. It has been occupied by the same family for over 800 years. And that's just mind-blowing. So, yeah, not for the tourist. It's somebody's house, but it happens to be quite special. This is Lincoln in Britain, where my son went to university. And I really love all of the possibilities. I love the fact that that house is that wonky because it is really, really quite old. The brickwork, the texture is absolutely everything. Love the way this tree turned out as well, with, again, started with gouache, ended with various coloured acrylic markers, very, very fine tip acrylic markers. And the fact that it's not green makes a nice contrast to things that are green. In fact, this is probably one of the least green pictures, apart from this bit, that I've done. I tend to enjoy putting it in everything. Another landscape art club. And this was another fun one. Lots of nice grass, lots of texture. My resist technique on the buildings. The sky in the actual picture was completely flat blue. And I never do them like that. Even when they are like that, I just want some texture in there. So again, scrubbing around with my brushes. I think there's a bit of neo colour under there to provide some resist. It works. This was one of my Patreon tutorials, working with different sort of levels and of light and showing shade in the foreground. The tree with sun coming through it takes a few sort of things to build up, and the trunk with bark on it and distant trees and so forth like that, and all this foreground interest and why we would want that. Another landscape art club, and I have to fix some of these pages. I can see there's some pastel dust there. I cleverly forgot to put one of the architectural elements onto Neuschwanstein Castle, so I'll probably do it at some point because it'll irritate me. Again, fun here. First gouache, liquid watercolour, then acrylic markers to get these nice strong effects. Coloured pencil and gouache on the castle, and lots of other textures. And again, the sky not quite flat because we don't want that. I don't want that. I mean, some people do, that's fine. Norfolk again. Lots of sort of flat lands and very, very big skies, which is nice. And again, this was one, I think actually from memory, this is another Patreon tutorial. We were doing water sparkles and I looked at rivers and different ripples. I think that one's in here too. The sea, because each body of water, depending on what it's lit from, will sparkle slightly differently. So this was the river type one. And that was just me playing on a Sunday night. And I love that one. Sometimes when something works like that, I think, you know what, I would frame that, except I can't because I don't want to wreck what's on the back. So that's bad luck. I'll have to reproduce it somehow. This was our sea sparkle. Was it? I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. But I think this was the sea sparkles one, or one of them anyway. And resist technique here, and lots of liquid watercolour. But again, that scrubby sky. What have we got here? Another imaginary one. This was another time where I couldn't be bothered doing anything. Don't like this one. It's this was a Landscape Art Club challenge and it looked really nice. I didn't have enough time to devote to it. I write for a living. My day job is writing. I write magazine articles and books and things like that. It was a deadline week and I should know better. I've been doing that job for 30 years in September and I should know better than to try and do something that has a deadline as well when I have all the other deadlines. It would be better to say, it's not your week, miss it. But I didn't. I did this and I'm not happy with it. It's all right, but I've done better. It just doesn't speak to me. This was a Sunday morning bike ride near where we live here in North Germany. And yeah, too pretty not to paint when I got home. So I usually paint from photos actually because it's much easier. Especially since I do a lot of birds. I do a lot of birds that aren't native to Germany. I do a lot of animals that aren't native to Germany. It is easier to use a photo and let the animal get on with its life. Also out the same sort of area here near where we live. We're in farming land. This one was just a village in Cornwall, one of the seaside villages. Port Isaac, I think. Something like that. This one is one of the Patreon tutorials where we were doing river ripples and also the sky and how the water reflects with a certain sort of sky because it changes. You can't just do a bright blue sky and then flat grey water because it won't match, that sort of thing. So yeah, quite different colour palette too. It was interesting to use the warm grey and apricot tones. I quite like that. And of course you can't, normally, as you've seen from all of my other pages, I'm usually quite muted, but this landscape art challenge was Monet's garden and his house. And I thought, oh no, I need to get involved with that. But so bright. And this was fun to do. I started off quite dark to get those really dark depths there. And again, gouache and liquid watercolour to get the deep, deep greens. But then I came back in with my acrylic markers. And these are 0.7mm ones that I absolutely love using. And just layer after layer after layer until you get a willow tree and a pond reflecting it. And yeah, I enjoyed that one. That was really nice. And I think I like this one better than that one, even though that was fun too. But this one, I like this bit best. This sort of area here is my favourite bit there. England, where my son tells me that he almost drowned getting a photo for me, so I felt obliged to do something with it. It was beautiful. He's in the north of England and there are some nice rivers and water, bodies of water around there, trees in the background, that sort of thing. Right up my alley. So that was something really nice that he could give me. And I thought, well, better do this, especially since he got his whole right foot wet. That was him nearly drowning, by the way. He got his right foot wet. So I thought I better do something. This one doesn't exist, only in my head. I was playing around with layers of pastels because soft pastels and mixed media don't always match, as I've mentioned in other videos. You have to fix it or else you'll come back with some of your felt tip markers and that will be the end of that felt tip marker. They don't survive it because it clogs it up, especially things like Pigma Micron. Pigma Micron markers are amazing and I have been using them now for more than 20 years. Love them, but they are temperamental. And if you go so near something wet, that's the end of them. They don't seem to recover. And if anything's dry and dusty and powdery, that's the end. So no good. Right, so here's that one. This was my first go at a plane and I did enjoy it. Another Landscape Art Club on Instagram. They're worth a search if you like doing challenges and things like that. They have a weekly one and this was particularly one of them. And the photo was taken by one of my patrons too, which I just thought was lovely. And I wanted to support her as well. Yeah, fun. I don't think that this would fool anybody as a real plane, but I'm very happy with it. Again, England, Landscape Art Club and England as well. I think that was in England. Yeah, a nice winter tree scene, and I adore doing these. It's such a zen moment to just keep doing those fine branches on a tree and these little bits here. That was done with my Zig Clean Colour markers, which, even though they're watercolour, they go over things amazingly well. And a collage, and this is, I don't know if you can see that there, it's really quite thick. It still goes into the book okay. I mean, all the books are, they're bitching a little bit, but all my books do, but they're not too bad. I wanted to do something that was very spring-like for the time of year. I can't remember when I did that actually, but sometime around spring. So we've got a worm, we've got a snail, a couple of sparrows, some crocuses, daffodils, and then just into the blue ether. And all of, the background, I usually start with gouache or something similar. And then I will make all of the elements individually from paper and colour them individually and stick them down. Again, much more information, you know where. North Germany, we live in a national park and it's full of heath, and that, so it's just fabulous to sketch as well. So I had a bit of a day with my oil pastels. It starts with gouache and then it goes with colour pencil, markers, acrylic markers, fine liners, and then some oil pastels to finish and some more acrylic markers. My bird of the month, this is going to be, not this particular one, but one of my patrons asked about a puffin because she loves puffins, and I will always do it if I can, possibly if somebody asks me to do something. So this is my practice puffin because that's a thing. Gouache in the background. Resist on the rocks, that one's actually collage that rock because the bird is, it's integral to the bird. It makes sense when you see what I do. The rest here, these are all stuck on, and then we've got some painted elements and the puffin, all the little wing, I wanted to say petals, but I think I mean feathers. All the feathers are done individually out of little bits of cut paper, coloured and put on to make a puffin. And I've never ever drawn a puffin before. I enjoyed it very much. So he's going to be my bird of the month for June 2024. If you're seeing this in the future, well then, yeah, it's already done. But as of today, it is not done yet, but it will be. That is the bird of the month for June. I have every now and again, I try to have a bird of the month. Just green stuff and a pond. Again, it was another Sunday night, exhausted from doing something else and thinking, well, what can I do? I'm just going to make marks. And I tend to go back to something I know quite well, like the trees and a bit of water, sky, something. But just so that I can do some art, move that muscle a little bit, and that's what I come up with. Love this one. This is such fun. Again, another collage. Half of these stones are painted on and half of them are collaged. But the result, I'm hoping there's no shine on the paper, because when I fix them, you'll get a bit of, sometimes if they're fixed, they'll get a bit of a shine. Some of the papers on the stones have a shine because I also make cards. So I use all the little bits of die cut papers. Sometimes I'll have a scrap where I've cut out an alphabet and there's little parts left. So I cut around those bits previously coloured with my sprays, and I cut around them to make little pebbles, and I can use all the scraps up in a picture like this. Obviously the puffin had some in as well. These rocks here, they're all sort of collaged. So yeah, that works, and it means I don't have very much waste. Back to green, I think this was somewhere, this was a landscape art club challenge. Back to the usual sort of thing, and some nice reflections and, you know, really lush green. I love that. It speaks to me. But sometimes it's nice to have a picture where there isn't any green. It's a nice contrast and it feels like a holiday from what I usually do. This little guy, a red shank. Again, I had more pebbles left, so I used them here. Some of this grass is collaged, as you can see. Finely cut collage bits and pieces, and the rest is done with acrylic markers. All the feathers. The body of the bird is on card, and I colour that and draw it with a few different techniques, but I always do the top bit here, the feathers and any visible tail. I do that with individual pieces of paper, and of course the beak, that's part of the whole bit. And this time I painted the legs onto the actual paper background rather than making it part of the collage, because sometimes when they're quite fine, they get very, very fragile. So I just wanted to try different things, because I can also then tell my students what works. Because again, as far as I know, this technique of collaging is the way I do it. I've never seen many other people do it like this. Some do, but I've not seen very many. And the detail, I love these details. I want it to look realistic. I don't want my collage to mean anything politically, and it actually put me off for years. I never did any collage because it was all about a political message, and this is what you should be thinking, and I have pre-digested this issue for you, and this is it. And then, of course, that's what the collage was supposed to mean. This is when I was in university in Australia doing an art degree. One of my first degrees was in art history, actually. And everything had meaning, but when you looked at the collage, it was just 3 pieces cut out of a magazine and some guy's head on upside down. I'm thinking, it's not speaking to me at all, and it's too political. I'm not interested. However, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, a couple of months ago, I realised I could do this differently. I could do this. I think I'd made a mistake on a picture somewhere, and I thought, what the hell can I do? Because I love the picture and the mistake is really obvious. So I made a collage and stuck it over the top, and that was the result of it. And then I thought, right, I'm off the leash now. There's no stopping me, because I know what I want to do. And I kept going and going and going. And these are the results. If you have a look back at my other videos and so forth on here, you can also see 1 or 2. I'll try and remember to link some. But otherwise, I have other collage videos and so forth, including a seagull one where I show you how I finished off the bird. And you can see exactly then how the feathers are done. This is a Patreon tutorial. One of my patrons asked about a bluebell wood, so I thought, yep, a bluebell wood is doable. So we started off with the sketch, again, gouache, coloured pencil, acrylic markers and fine liners, and then we finished it by collaging some bluebells on the front so that you get some forced perspective, which works quite well in a scene like this. And back to Germany. This was, again, me messing around with all my things, and then I thought, yep, there's a tutorial in that as well. So this is the tutorial that I did. And again, here's some oil pastels, brick techniques. I love these old brick techniques. And of course the roof, that's another technique. This is the same resist technique for the stone that was a couple of pages back on the watermill. And of course, liquid watercolor to get these on both pages. I love that. Bit of acrylic brush marker in there as well for the ones that are closest. But this really nice moody picture. I'm sorry about the shine on that. I didn't notice that. Let me just, is that better? I think that is. Let me know if you couldn't see something. It's really difficult to see here. My camera mount covers most of the screen because of course I'm using the back camera, so it's, yeah, but hopefully you can see that. I spray these with a fixative and that gives a shine, which is good, and it works and it keeps them good, but it's difficult to see what's going on. This one's not finished. This is going to be a tutorial for my students next week or the week after. Again, if you're seeing this much in the future, at the moment it's May 2024. So if you're seeing it in the future, that'll be done. But I want to show my patrons how I do the interior of a well-lit shop. And I was working with some ideas for wisteria for the collage. So all the branches are down, but I want to show how I collage small flowers, because some big ones, a lot of stuff that I've collaged is quite large, or I have enlarged it by zooming right in. Like, where are those daffodils, wherever they were, those. They're almost bigger than life, really. So I wanted to know how I could also get something with wisteria that was in my style. So I've worked it out now, so that's coming soon. This was last week's tutorial, because again, one of my patrons wanted to see how I used my Derwent Inktense pencils, which if you've not already gone down that rabbit hole, they are a beautiful watercolor pencil, and I've used them for both of these. And I have another special technique that I've worked out, which is called soft sgraffito. and if you try it, you'll know exactly why I've called it that. Yeah, it gets a really quite nice, rich toned, again, a little bit brighter than my usual sort of colouring, but it works particularly well. It's super easy to do, and the results are quite nice, actually. So it lends itself beautifully to brick and stone, and also these shop fronts always look good. So we've done some London shop fronts. This one's a Franken sketch because I couldn't find one that was exactly what I was after. So I found several on Pixabay and Unsplash, royalty-free photos, worth a look. And I just put them all together to make something. So this shop doesn't exist in this form. It works. It's what I wanted to do. So this sketchbook is technically not finished because I've got to come back and do this next week. But yeah, it's nice to see how to do a very, very busy room, because you've got to simplify it. There's no way you can put in every single bit of detail, and artists tend not to. Some do if they're after photorealism, but I still would argue the fact that something gets left out because it has to. So I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, like I said, if you would like to see more about my style, please do consider joining us on Patreon. Otherwise, stand by. I think I've got another video seeing on how this week goes. It's pretty stacked up, actually, but I would like to do another video for you on a favourite 5 or something like that, just something to get your teeth into. Yes, so I will see you then, and enjoy the week. I hope the weather is nice where you are. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, it is sublime, and I'm fighting the urge to go outside. I need to stay inside and do some proper work. So thank you very much for watching. If you stayed until the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you again next time. Bye.